You think the problem is the gift. It is not. The flowers are not the danger. The surprise favor is not the danger. The thoughtful check-in is not the danger. That is only the smoke. The fire burns somewhere else. It burns inside the quiet pressure you feel afterward. The pressure to say yes. The pressure to explain less. The pressure to forgive faster. The pressure to stay available even when something feels wrong. And if you are a mature man, especially over 50, this matters more. Because at this age, you do not only protect your heart, you protect your time, your rhythm, your home, your peace. And the most dangerous manipulations rarely arrive as demands. They arrive wrapped in kindness. They look generous. They sound considerate. They feel flattering at first. Then, slowly, they begin to edit your behavior. You answer faster. You cancel more easily. You tolerate what you would normally question. You stop speaking plainly because you do not want to seem cold. And that is the glitch. You are not weak. You are not foolish. You are responding to a very old human mechanism. When somebody gives, the nervous system prepares to return. That is how communities survived. That is how trust formed. That is how alliances stayed stable. But in modern relationships, that same mechanism gets exploited. Not always consciously, not always cruelly, but very often strategically. Tonight, I want to show you 6 gifts and gestures of attention that can become tools of control. Not because every generous woman is manipulating you, she is not, but because some forms of care are not care at all. They are leverage, wearing perfume. And once you see the pattern, you will not confuse warmth with ownership again. Let us begin with the first one. The first manipulation is the rescue gift. This is when she notices a problem in your life, then rushes to solve it. She sends food when you did not ask. She buys something for your apartment. She handles a task you mentioned once. She appears, almost heroically, with exactly what was missing. Now listen carefully. Real care asks. Strategic care inserts itself. That is the difference. At first, the rescue feels beautiful, especially if you have been alone a while, especially if life has felt heavy, especially if nobody has anticipated your needs in years. And that is why it works. The gift is not just the object. The gift is the emotional message. It says, "See how well I understand you." It says, "See how much easier your life becomes around me." And later, without saying it directly, it also says, "So why are you resisting me now?" This pattern often begins in tenderness. Then it matures into silent authority. You did not ask for the help. But now you feel rude questioning the influence. Humans are built for reciprocity. Anthropologists have written about this for decades. Across tribes, villages, kin groups, gift exchange was not random. It created obligation. It stabilized alliances. It reduced the risk of rejection and conflict. In the old world, that was useful. If someone fed you in winter, you remembered. If someone carried your burden, you owed respect. The debt was social glue. But the modern glitch is this. Your nervous system still reads help as moral weight, even when the help was intrusive, even when the help was performative, even when the help was designed to skip consent. So the tool is simple. Before you thank the gesture, ask one quiet question. Did I choose this, or was this chosen for me? If it was chosen for you, be careful. Gratitude does not require surrender. The second manipulation is the upgrade gift. This is the gift that subtly tells you who you should become. A better jacket, a different cologne, a new restaurant standard. Tickets, memberships, experiences, all pointing toward her preferred version of you. Now, on the surface, this can look supportive. She wants you polished. She wants you elevated. She wants to bring out your best. Maybe. But sometimes the gift is not appreciation. It is revision. And mature men miss this because refinement can feel flattering. You think, She sees potential in me. But what is really happening sometimes is quieter. She is teaching you that acceptance comes with edits. You begin adjusting without noticing. You wear what she approves. You speak in ways she praises. You stop choosing from yourself. That slow movement matters. Because the moment a gift becomes a curriculum, freedom starts shrinking. The origin of this pattern is also ancient. Human beings survived by tracking status signals. Belonging mattered. Pair bonds mattered. Social approval mattered. To be accepted by the group, you learned the codes. What to wear, how to move, when to speak, what was attractive, what was embarrassing. So when someone offers improvement, your brain often reads it as protection. Adapt and stay chosen. But there is a contextual break now. A relationship is not a finishing school. Affection is not supposed to feel like probation. A loving partner may inspire you, yes, but manipulation makes you feel that love sits just beyond the next correction. And here is the test. After the gift, do you feel more like yourself or less? That is the whole question. Healthy love expands expression. Control narrows it. The third manipulation is the emergency generosity pattern. This one is especially powerful. She pays suddenly. She covers the bill without warning. She lends money quickly. She handles a crisis before you can even think. And again, let me be fair. Sometimes this is genuine generosity. Sometimes it is simply grace. But when it becomes repeated, dramatic, and emotionally remembered, it can turn into a quiet chain. Because emergency generosity changes the emotional hierarchy. The giver becomes the stabilizer. The receiver becomes the one who was saved. And once that identity forms, disagreement gets harder. You are not arguing with a partner anymore. You are arguing with the person who was there for you. Do you see it? The discussion is no longer about the present issue. It is haunted by old rescue. This is where many decent men start betraying themselves. Not because they agree, because they feel indebted. They stay in conversations too long. They accept disrespect. They hide discomfort. They keep paying emotionally for a debt that was never clearly named. Behavioral psychology has a term close to this dynamic. When a valuable act arrives during stress, it imprints deeply. The nervous system pairs relief with the person. That pairing can become attachment, strong attachment, sometimes irrational attachment, especially after loneliness, especially after divorce, especially after a period when nobody came. So the tool here is a pause between relief and allegiance. You can receive help and still evaluate character later. Never let one dramatic act become a lifetime credential. That is how control enters through gratitude. The fourth manipulation is the audience gift. This one is subtle and frankly, very effective. She gives in front of people. She praises you publicly. She posts the gesture. She makes a show of supporting you. She tells friends what she did for you. Now the gift is no longer private care. It is social architecture. It creates a witness, and once other people have seen her generosity, your freedom becomes more expensive. Because if you push back later, you do not just risk conflict, you risk looking ungrateful. This is one of the oldest forms of pressure in human life. Reputation has always been currency. For thousands of years, survival depended on how the group saw you. Were you honorable? Were you loyal? Were you difficult? Were you selfish? So public generosity is potent because it binds two systems at once: your personal conscience and the court of social opinion. You may notice yourself thinking, I cannot confront this now. People will misunderstand. She has done so much for me. Exactly. That is the trap. The visible gift becomes a shield against accountability. And not every woman does this with evil intent. Sometimes it is insecurity. Sometimes it is a need to be seen as good. Sometimes it is image management learned over years. But your nervous system does not care about the motive first. It feels the pressure either way. So use this rule. The more public the generosity, the more private your evaluation must become. Do not judge a gesture by the applause around it. Judge it by what happens after you say no. That is where truth appears. The fifth manipulation is the rhythm gift. This is not one big gift. It is a pattern of tiny attentions. Good morning texts, coffee left at your door, little treats, inside jokes, small, thoughtful favors, perfect timing, constant low-level sweetness. And this is the one most men romanticize because it feels soft, it feels feminine, it feels like being remembered. For a man who has spent years being useful, not cherished, this can hit hard. But repeated attention can become conditioning. The point is not the object, the point is the rhythm. She becomes your emotional metronome. Your day starts with her, your mood responds to her. Your sense of closeness depends on her little signals. Then, one day, the rhythm changes. She withdraws slightly. She delays. She cools the pattern. And suddenly, you feel restless. You wonder what happened. You reach more. You accommodate more. You become easier to steer. This is intermittent reinforcement. One of the strongest conditioning mechanisms we know. When reward is steady, you enjoy it. When reward becomes unpredictable, you chase it. Casinos understand this. Apps understand this. People understand this too, even if only intuitively. And here is the deeper origin. The brain is always scanning for patterns that predict safety and belonging. When a person becomes part of that pattern, disruption feels threatening, not dramatic, just enough to make you self-edit. So what is the tool? Track consistency, not intensity. A man with self-respect does not ask, "How sweet was that?" He asks, "What happens to my clarity when this sweetness changes?" If the answer is, "I become anxious and more compliant," step back. That is not intimacy. That is dependency forming in silk gloves. The sixth manipulation is the sacrificial gift. This one sounds noble, and that is why it is dangerous. She gives something for you that she wants you to remember forever. She traveled far. She missed something important. She spent too much. She took a risk. She did all this because of how much you mean to her. Again, not always manipulation. But when sacrifice is emphasized, repeated, or emotionally displayed, it becomes a contract you did not sign. The message underneath is powerful. I paid dearly for this, so do not disappoint me. Do not make my sacrifice meaningless. This form of giving creates the heaviest false debt, because now gratitude is mixed with guilt. And guilt is one of the fastest ways to override personal boundaries. You say yes because no feels cruel. You stay because leaving feels monstrous. You soften your truth because honesty looks like betrayal. Over time, your behavior reorganizes around preventing her pain. That sounds compassionate, but in excess, it becomes self-erasure. And here is the psychological origin. Humans are deeply responsive to costly signals. If someone gives at real expense, we assume sincerity. That assumption once protected group trust. Cost meant commitment. But in modern intimacy, cost can be weaponized. A sacrifice can be sincere, or it can be a stage. The only way to know is not by the size of the gift. It is by the freedom around it. Healthy sacrifice does not keep receipts. Manipulative sacrifice does. So ask yourself this. After her big gesture, do you feel loved or managed? Loved feels warm. Managed feels heavy. Your body knows the difference even when your mind starts negotiating. Now, step back with me. You have seen the 6 patterns: the rescue gift, the upgrade gift, emergency generosity, the audience gift, the rhythm gift, the sacrificial gift. Different wrapping, same mechanism, each one creates emotional debt. Each one pressures your behavior. Each one tries, slowly, to replace choice with obligation. And this is where most advice gets lazy. People tell you, just have boundaries. But if it were that simple, you would already do it. The real problem is older than your willpower. Your system was built to honor giving, to return generosity, to avoid seeming selfish, to preserve connection. So do not shame yourself for feeling the pull. Understand the pull. That is how you regain control. Here is the neutralization tool. I call it the clean ledger. When a gift or gesture lands, do not evaluate the object first. Evaluate the aftertaste. Ask yourself 4 questions. First, was this invited? Second, is there pressure attached? Third, does my freedom feel smaller afterward? Fourth, can I say no now without emotional punishment? If the answer to the last question is no, the gift was not free. It may have looked free. It may have sounded free, but psychologically, it came with strings. And here is the protocol. Do not confront in the heat of receiving. That is where guilt is strongest. Pause. Thank the gesture briefly. Then watch the pattern. If you need language, use calm language. That was thoughtful, thank you. I appreciate the intention. I want to move slowly here. I do not want gifts to decide things between us. I would rather choose this freely. Notice the structure. No accusation, no cruelty, no performance, just clarity. And there is one critical mistake men make here. They over-explain. They start justifying. They start defending. They start proving they are still good men. Do not do that. Over-explaining turns your boundary into a request for approval. A boundary is not a debate. It is information. The mature masculine move is quiet. Receive what is clean. Decline what is binding. And never pay for peace with your voice. Because that payment gets expensive. It costs confidence first, then autonomy, then discipline, then identity. You stop asking what you want. You start asking what keeps the atmosphere pleasant. That is not love. That is behavioral capture. So return with me to the scene from the beginning. The flowers arrive. The favor arrives. The thoughtful surprise arrives. Before, you saw kindness and then felt confusion. Now you know where to look. Not at the ribbon, not at the smile, not at the story attached. Look at the pressure that follows. Look at whether your no still survives. Look at whether your preferences remain intact. Look at whether gratitude is being used to edit your character. That is the real detective work. And once you learn it, something changes inside you. You do not become cold, you become precise. You do not become suspicious of every caring woman. You become literate in emotional power. That is very different. A good relationship will survive your clarity. A manipulative one will resist it. That resistance is information. And for a mature man, information is dignity. If this opened your eyes, the next question becomes even more important. What happens when affection itself becomes a test? When warmth appears, disappears, then returns, just enough to keep you leaning forward. That is where subtle control becomes even more seductive. And that is the next layer you need to understand.